welcome. Officially welcome to Restorative Yoga. So make sure you've got some nice comfy props, things to get started with. We are gonna start in a reclining butterfly pose, and I'm gonna invite you, if you want, to kind of take a little stack of pillows and make a wedge. If you've got a yoga block and a pillow, that'll also do nicely. That's what I'm gonna use. But essentially, we're just going to kind of create a little slope. So my head is at the top of the slope, and you can do that just by, kind of progressively stacking pillows, or add a blanket to your head, or whatever, to get a nice easy slope. Okay, now the legs are going to be in this little butterfly shape. And so you may want something under the shin bones or under the thigh bones just to fill in the gap there. And you might also want a blanket to go over the top. If it's chilly where you are, it is chilly where I am. So I am going to take that option. Okay, so then for the most part, that's what we're going to need today. We're going to need some soft, squishy props and blankets, and maybe a yoga block if we've got one. If not, pillows will work. All right, so butterfly legs. And the first thing I'm going to do is lay back, and then I'm going to adjust my legs in a moment, but I'm going to get my back the way I want it first. So depending on how firm the pillows are or whatever that you've decided to put underneath you, you may have to fiddle a little bit with whether the hips are a little further out or a little closer in towards the pillows. You might want the pelvis tilted in or a little bit under. I like mine generally to not have anything where my lower back is. I want it to be sort of under my ribs, and then that spot right in the between the rib cage and the hips to be mostly not have any props in it. That tends to give me the best results for my lower back. Not too pushy, so I can get the curve just right. And then I've kind of pulled this blanket up around the top of my thighs so that there's very little sensation. The primary thing with restorative yoga is we're just trying to relax. That's the whole point. So if the pose is too spicy, it can be a little bit harder to relax. So we're going to try to go for not as spicy. Mostly just Now my elbows are touching the ground. If they weren't, I might add a little extra, like a little towel or something under the elbows, or adjust the support so that they can. Find if my elbows don't quite touch the ground, then it gets a little too spicy around the shoulder joint after a bit. All right. So you might still fiddle with this for the first minute. I know I will. So I'm going to relax into it and see how it feels. Make a little adjustment here and there. You've made any little last minute adjustments that you feel are going to be necessary. We're going to stay for another probably like 5 minutes, just letting go. I find having a kind of nice, relatively relaxed, but intentional breath pattern is helpful. So for me, it's just a little tiny bit of a hold at the top of the inhale, and then a really soft and gentle exhale. So I just breathe in normally. Pause briefly at the top of that breath, and then just let the exhale be really relaxed. And I even sort of give my body the suggestion of relaxing as I exhale. See if you like that one, or you can find one of your own. Take our last minute or so here. We might just let ourselves kind of from time to time just be present. I know my mind likes to race off into the future, or mostly, occasionally obsess over the past, but mostly likes to race into the future. So if we get our breath practice steady enough that we can be really present, it's nice to just hang out right there for a little bit. Just feel the surface of the mat, feel yourself relaxing into the earth. Notice the little aspects of the day, the way the light's coming through the window, those kinds of things. It's nice to just be here now. this pose, I'm going to go really gently. I'm just going to start with my legs. I'm going to straighten those out. And then rest there for just a moment. And again, kind of settle and just notice. If you want, you can do some movement as well. I'm going to do some little ankle circles because that feels kind of nice. Circles in both directions, and then I'll do a little bit of pointing and flexing of my ankle joint there. Feet. All right, so I'm gonna get myself off of this pillow, but it's gonna take a moment. So we're gonna, this is one of the things, just move slowly. That's the primary thing. So once you've gotten the props out from under you, then we're gonna roll back onto our back. Now, I am gonna generally want a little pillow underneath my knees for this next pose, but for the most part, all we're gonna do, our side bending, side flexing pose today as the banana pose. So we just kind of side bend, like if you were standing up, it would be a standing crescent pose, right? It's the same thing. So your arms can be over your head. I've got to make a little more room if I'm gonna do it that way. So the arms can be over your head, but they don't have to be. They can be a little more relaxed, which is generally what I do, is kind of bend at the elbow. And then for me, there's a little gap underneath my knees, which if I'm only gonna stay here for a couple of minutes, isn't that big a deal, but we're gonna stay for about 5. So I like to fill that little gap in with a blanket, just so that the little space right under my knees is filled in. You can cross one ankle over the other, but maybe for this one we want to be a little more relaxed. We're not trying to tug too hard on this outer hip. Mostly we're interested in what's happening with the spine. So if you want to keep the legs out of the side bend, you can do it that way as well. Okay. So again, just for warmth, I'm going to cover with a blanket after I've settled myself in, I think. Well, I'm going to have to start now and then maybe it'll settle. We'll see if I can keep my toes covered up. And then I'm going to kind of fiddle with the adjustment in my upper back and shoulders until I like the way the arms rest. Sometimes one needs to be a little different than the other one. A little bit lower. And for me, just once I'm satisfied, I just let go. So again, it might take me a moment, a minute or so, even to like completely adjust the pose. Because sometimes it seems like everything's cool, and then I kind of take a couple breaths and it's no longer as cool as it was. So make little minute adjustments as you need, and then once it feels reasonable, like there's nothing too pinchy, nothing is tugging in a way that feels too spicy, but you've got a little side bend in your spine, that's the most important part, then just let go and relax. Other things will happen also, but we're mostly interested in letting gravity do most of the work here. we just use the breath whenever we like so that we stay steady and present. Relax, notice this moment as much as you can. If you find your mind slipping off into the future or the past, bring it on back right to the breath. Maybe with that little breath technique of just pausing a little bit with the inhale, maybe just letting the breath do its thing but noticing it. We'll stay for another minute or so. So we take a nice big breath. Then let go with a sigh. And I'm going to slowly sort of change this shape. I'm going to do it very slowly. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it even has changed. There's still a kind of sense that one side's a little bit longer than the other, stretched out in a different way. So I'm gonna hang out for a second. I am gonna do some movement in my legs because it always feels really good, but not quite yet. I like to, lately anyway, I like to let the pose kind of just marinate for a second before I start moving, or the after part of the pose marinate for a second. Feels nice. Now we're going to do the other side, but I'm not sure I'm quite ready yet. I'm going to give myself a little bit longer to kind of feel a little more of a sort of softening around this feeling of asymmetry. But when you're ready, you can certainly head in that direction. Right. So I'm going to start with just my upper body. Just kind of find that curve in my spine. See if I want to change the legs. And then I'm going to play with my arms a little bit. Try to find sense of that sort of side shape. The hair stuck somewhere. But a sense of this little side shape without being any sort of problem for my shoulder. And I started out with one arm position on the other side and then changed it. So that's also a possibility here. I may change my mind in the little first few minutes here. So Again, take the first minute and just sort of let yourself settle. And it feels really nice, or just sort of steady might be the right word. It doesn't feel like you need to move anymore to relax. Then just relax as deeply as you can. Let go into the pose. If it feels like your muscles want to hold you back from relaxing, like there's some little muscle that doesn't want to let go yet, just readjust and then try again. Try to let yourself relax. Maybe it takes layers to relax. So we might start somewhere, and then after a few moments we'll realize, oh, there's more I can let go. That's pretty common. The nervous system is pretty sneaky in the way that it will kind of cause certain muscles to sort of stay contracted, stay almost like they're sort of vigilant. So we're trying to sort of get, through that setup. We're trying to let those muscles finally relax. Let the nervous system really trust us. That's why the props are important, so that we're not making the pose too spicy. We really want it to be really mild yoga. We're not really aiming for a big stretch here. Just want just enough that there's a pose happening. Then we're letting go. It's practice of letting the nervous system relax. And I tend to focus my restorative practice around my spine. I like to get all the different ways that my spine will move. It's the center of my body. Everything else emanates from there. So that's why I focus there. I focus there more than everything else. Everything's connected to it. So if I just move my spine in all the different ways that it moves and hold a shape like that for a while, all the muscle around it will also relax. This is my theory. Many, many more experiments to do on myself, though, to be able to come to the conclusive outcomes. The good news is we can practice every day, so there's plenty of time. It's kind of this combination of physically relaxing, mentally relaxing, letting yourself be present right here in the moment. Another breath here. Let it go. And then we're gonna just slowly make our way out of the pose. Again, giving yourself plenty of time to sort of feel the after effect of the pose, to give yourself some time for a little bit of movement, nice, gentle, easy going, but maybe rhythmic movement. So our next place is going to be, that we're going to arrive at is going to be a seated position. We don't have to arrive there immediately. You could take the time that you need. I'm going to lay on my side for a little bit. It's comfortable for me to use my arm as a pillow, but if it's not, you can always use a pillow under your head as well. Once you've gotten yourself to a seated position, just pause for a moment. Just pick up one that works best for you. And we'll just notice. So we're going to do a forward bend. And we want the legs to be, for the most part, doing the same thing. So right now, the way I'm sitting, I've got one crossed over the other. So that's not symmetrical. But I kind of just want to tune in, since this is my common way of sitting, just want to tune into how I am feeling, like how's my lower back doing today, how are my hips doing, just to kind of notice, because we've done a few poses. Oh, hello there. Oh, maybe maybe there's like some changes that have happened in our body since we've done these little poses. I can try to steal my pillows back. Okay. So I'm gonna put my legs out, and this is where the kind of exploration is gonna start. Do I want them, fairly close together? I'm just gonna kind of let myself feel that out. Just a little bit of, I'm going to definitely put something under my knees to modify a little bit of the spiciness that I'm feeling in my hamstrings. When I fold forward, I could also have my legs a little wider. Just kind of noticing. I think today I'm going to go with less wide. It's feeling nice. Okay, so that's kind of the exploration you're going to do. You're just going to try out a couple of different widths. Maybe in the same way that this ferret is dragging herself around on the floor, just checking things out. Trying stuff out. Okay, and then we're going to fold forward. Now, the thing with forward bending is that sometimes, like, my back is pretty comfortable with forward bending. And it's probably the one way that I'm actually more flexible than the average bear. And a rounded back does not bother me. Like, if my back kind of makes more of a turtle shell. But for some people, especially right in this kind of lumbar, lower back area, any rounding there feels really uncomfortable. And if that's the case, then what you may want to do is just see how far your pelvis will tilt forward and then build up the props until you can just lean into it. It's, for me, like a chair works really well. So pulling a chair over and being able to kind of lean into the seat of a chair. Again, like for me, like this little pillow mound that I'm going to build myself is going to be just about perfect because I can let my back round over nice and soft and it's going to be just fine. But if that's not the case for you, then what you may want to do is get an extra prop while we're hanging out here. Oh, good. They've delayed their Bizarro hour for now, which is awesome. There might be some bear dancing, just a heads up. We'll see what happens. So in any case, I'm going to let myself do my yoga pose. We're going to fold forward in some capacity. I'm going to try to kind of build myself a little forehead landing point. I mostly just want to let my head rest, and this kind of does the trick. Just if I find right where it wants to land anyway. Now as I go along again, I might make little adjustments here. But for the most part, I just start somewhere, see how it feels. Get a little noisy. They have a whole little land of crunchy bags and things to play in. That's right next to the right next to the microphone, so I'll apologize to you guys in advance for that. Or in the midst of it anyway. I'm going to stay with this guy for about another 4 minutes or so. You can make any adjustments you think are appropriate. Things I really love about these forward bends is that you can feel the breath in your back in a really cool way. I probably say that every single time, but oh gosh, I never get tired of it. It's really cool. Just feels really neat. Let's stay for just a few more minutes. Just a couple more. All right, friends, we're going to take a nice big breath. I'm going to let myself float up a little bit, and then I'm going to let that breath go, and then I'm going to do another breath again. Inhale. Let myself float part of the way out. And let that breath go, and then one more, maybe two more. Just kind of coming out slow. Now, my legs have been straight for a while, so I'm going to bend them, and I'm just going to, again, kind of come to a really simple little cross-legged position. Maybe a little looser than my simple cross-legged position, but pretty close. That feels good. Some little movements with my ribs. If you want to join me, I'm just basically just kind of tucking and tilting my pelvis, but then sort of emphasizing what's happening around my shoulder. Kind of bringing my arms and shoulders forward and back. And then doing some little side to side moves, little shimmies in the ribs. What we're going to do next is a version of a twist that kind of also borders on the deer pose from yin, but a little on the softer side for that. So a pillow for me is really helpful, but some folks just prefer to have no props at all, like it just is more comfortable. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to let ourselves rest on one hip and turn the chest toward the floor to create the twist. Now you can turn your head in different directions. You can just keep your head sort of, like forehead toward the floor. I've got my palms underneath me so I can not smoosh my nose. But like that's the general possibility, and I can do that for a short period of time, but it's a little smooshy. So instead, I prefer to add a pillow to the whole thing. So I'm gonna put a pillow down the middle, and I might even need something like for my head, or to kind of fill in this gap between my neck and the pillow. Sometimes I need a little armrest, so I might need a blocker. This extra pillow will do nice. And that's essentially the deal. So sometimes too, the greater trochanter, which is this little kind of bony protrusion on the outside of the thigh, that is a little, like if your floor is really hard, you might need to put a blanket down first so that bony spot can have a little place, a little soft place for itself on the floor. I've got carpeting and then my mat, so it's usually pretty good. So I rest my rib cage up on this pillow. Sometimes I have to do some adjusting because my head, well, my neck needs a little more support than that. So that's too much. I have to find like not too close to the side waist, but not too far away from it. It's an interesting sort of balance of getting just right. Let's try the other angle. Let's see if I like that a little more. That's better. Okay. Sometimes I have to get the lumps out of the blanket. Okay, so this elbow is going to float a little bit, so I am going to use that guy. So for me, this is a weird pose. It's definitely not as comfortable as a reclining twist, but because it's kind of interesting, sometimes I choose to do it anyway. But if you want, you can do a reclining twist instead. Like if finding a comfortable position here is just proving to be next to impossible, a reclining twist would be just fine. Or even a really simple seated one. But I find this one interesting enough to want to do it from time to time. Now, sort of like the deer pose, you can't take one leg and just kind of bring it back and have one forward so the legs aren't stacked on top of each other. You can have the one leg straightened out. Sometimes I like that better, and just the bottom one bent. Or you can have both legs kind of stacked. So that's one more layer you can play with once you get the rest of the pose kind of settled into place. Stay for about another 4 minutes. Where's your sister? Go invite your sister to play. Go invite your sister to play. I'm doing stuff. Sometimes it's possible, I guess, if you have other kinds of pets, that
But they might just cuddle up next to you instead of trying to get you involved in a wrestling match. It's hard to know. Maybe they bring you their toys. I don't know. It's part of the fun of practicing at home. Occasional interruption. Got about a minute left or so here. We've got 2 more breaths. To come out of here, I'm going to swing my legs up front and basically just push myself up to a sitting position. If you're doing the reclining version instead of this version, just bring your legs back to the center. That'll set you up for the next side.
Once I get to the seated position, I'm not going to be in a hurry to change anything because I still feel like I'm twisting. So I'm going to give my spine a little bit of time to kind of unwind that. Oh. Now, I'm just going to move my props over to the opposite side here while I'm letting everything marinate and settle. I'll know when it's time to do the other side, but I no longer feel like I'm turning in this one direction. But since I still kind of do feel that, I'm not going anywhere yet. Getting a little more easy. It's getting a little more easy. All right, so again, I'm gonna essentially kind of lay down on this hip and then fiddle with the prop arrangement until I like how it supports my body in this little twisty shape. And then once I get kind of settled there, I'll play with the legs. For right now, they're just kind of stacked on top of each other here on the side. Just gonna settle in for a little while, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 minutes. settling into a twist. Twists are some of my favorite postures. Don't know why, but I just love the way they feel while you're in them, and when you get out of them, they just feel nice. Sometimes, though, picking your favorite yoga pose is a little bit like picking your favorite food or your favorite kid. It just depends. So maybe twists are your favorite some days, but not today. That would be all right too. So choose appropriately for yourself the way you want to settle in here. Maybe do the one on your back if you're not liking the front down version. Mostly we're just trying to let go. More minutes to go. Like I'm like a little bit shy of 2 more minutes. Just hanging out, breathing and letting ourselves relax. More breaths here. So again, the way I'm going to come out of this, I'm going to swing my legs forward and then just kind of push myself with my arms up to a sitting position. And that's where I'm going to do my sort of in-between pose relaxing. You can, of course, change that up and do something different. And if you're on your back, you might stay there. So again, I still feel like I'm in the twist because I kind of am. So I'm going to let my back gently unwind, put fluid back where it wants fluid. Do all the things. So we just got one last pose. We're going to do that pose for a while, which is Shavasana. So it's not a particularly exciting pose to look at, but it's super comfy. And we're gonna do some kind of like a little bit, you know, an elevation under the knees. That could just be a rolled up blanket. I'm gonna go a little bigger than I normally do, and I'm actually gonna use both of my pillows, kind of stack them up so that there's a pretty good elevation to my legs. It's almost an inversion, but not quite. You can also do this sort of a thing with your legs up, like resting your calf muscles on the seat of a chair or on the couch, so that your back rests on the floor and you get like a little, you know, 90-degree angles at your hip and your knee-ish. So it's sort of like a legs up the wall, but a little softer. Or you could do legs up the wall if you wanted to, if you have a wall nearby. So that's an option. You can also just do a supported Shavasana where your back's, you know, whole body stays a little more level with the ground. So that is, I'm not quite ready, but I'm almost there. That is sort of up to you. The other possibilities are you can certainly, like just for padding purposes, you can add pillow under your head. You can add some support in whatever way feels nice under the upper back. Sometimes a blanket that sort of covers the whole sort of upper back and neck or head for me, it feels really nice. And I'll even do like just the tiniest little wrinkle right under the neck so that everything's sort of supported in that upper back. Sometimes I like that better than just resting on the floor. So that's the thing. We're just gonna build a little nest basically to relax in. And of course, covering everything with a blanket or adding extra layers, all those things would be nice. Okay, so I'm gonna do this little blanket thing, but I might do a little head cocoon. So I'm gonna give myself a little extra, blanket side on the sides. So I'm gonna lay this blanket out kind of broad. Smooth it out. We don't want wrinkles. Now this guy, I may have to do some adjusting to pull this guy in toward me. All right, and then the last thing I'll do is cover it with a blanket. So I'm gonna lay down. I need to get myself sort of situated so that mostly this blanket is up above my head, right? Because I'm gonna do like a little cover over the eyes. I call this a head cocoon. And then I'm just gonna kind of tuck in around the edges with the rest of the blanket. And it makes this like slightly, you know, like it takes away a little bit of the sound and it creates a little bit of darkness. I need room to breathe, so I'm leaving my, you know, my nose and my mouth exposed so that I can breathe. That is kind of nice. You can kind of tuck it in around the edges of your chin. Now, if you like something a little heavier, you can put like a little weighted eye bag. Like they have, yeah, they make little eye pillows. I've made some myself with little seeds in, so you can kind of rest that over the eyes. That would add a little extra to it if you want the little head cocoon. I haven't made one in a long time, but they're awfully nice in the winter because they sort of keep your ears warm also. All right. So tuck in however you want your blankets tucked in. Tuck them in. I kind of tuck this in around my neck a little here. And then fix the little eye covery part of it. Hopefully when I put my arms down it won't all fall apart. That does sometimes occur. Tuck it in a bit. The tickly part of the blanket away from my nostril. And then we just relax. So your arms can go out to the side to whatever, sort of spot feels nice. You can bend at the elbow. Sometimes I like my arms kind of tucked in a little, and I might do that starting out with that today. So it's a little warmer. And having my arms kind of cuddled over my ribs feels really nice. Anyway, it's a restful position. So as long as it's restful, that's what we're looking for. Just let yourself relax. So whether you have the the weird little head cocoon, or you are doing a more traditional, just regular old corpse pose, just as nice as it could be. No bells and whistles needed. Just let your body soften and relax. And now that we're here, we'll stay a little while, a good 5 or 6 minutes anyway. And all we have to do, our only job here is to just be. How often do you get to just be in your life? You don't have to do a task or a role or whatever. Just get to be present. If you catch your mind wandering off, just bring it on back, like Curtis Mayfield said. Check out your mind. And then come on back. Just relax. Do you for all you're worth. You don't know that song, you should definitely listen to it. It's awesome. Now it's going to play in my head, but I'm going to be just as present as I can be given that circumstance. Just let go. one downside to being inside the cocoon is I have no idea what time it is. Take a moment and notice your breath again. All time and space disappears inside the head cocoon. Which might be the whole reason to use it, frankly. You can start to wiggle your fingers and toes when you're ready. Maybe do some little circles with the ankles and the wrists. Ooh. Now, just like any other yoga pose here in this practice, I'm not coming out of this quick, but I am gonna lay on my side for a little bit before I push myself upright. We can say goodbye to each other for our practice today anyway. So thank you for joining me for some restorative yoga. Hopefully it feels like your reset button has been pushed and you're ready to go gently into the next week. Let's take a nice big breath together. And a big sigh. Namaste.